So a question I get a lot is, well, David, have we always had an income tax? The answer to that is no. When our founding fathers started this country, risked their lives, their sacred honors, the first thing they did was not go out and pass an income tax. It was over 140 years before we had our first income tax. 1913 is when a constitutional amendment was passed in order for us to have our first income tax. But here's the thing. It only impacted about less than 10% of our income. Actually, with all the deductions and write-off, about 1% of our income went to income taxes. I'm okay with that. But that quickly changed. If you look at the chart here, by World War II, so in the 1940s, the top tax bracket went all the way up to 94%. Imagine this, from 1% in 1913 on average, all the way up to the highest tax bracket of 94%. But again, we had the biggest threat the West was facing. We had to build up our military, our army, we had to build ships and airplanes. So we had to fund that, and that came in the form of higher taxes. But here's how Washington is. Usually when something is passed, a bill is passed, it's very hard to get that turned around. So it really took almost 40 years until Ronald Reagan became president. Taxes were finally reduced. Top rate went from 94% all the way down to 69%. And that brings us to where we are today. In 2017, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act reduced the top bracket down to 39%. So you can see historically, taxes are in a much lower place today than they've been in a long time. But the question I have is, with over $30 trillion in national debt, trillion plus deficits every year, can we continue to increase debt without increasing taxes? This is the part that is just, it really is heartbreaking. Our current national debt is well over 31 trillion. But when we had the debt ceiling debate and we finally had a debt ceiling bill that was passed, in 1 month, we went from 31.5 trillion to about a month later, 32.5 trillion. We added $1 trillion to our deficit in just 1 month. And one of the areas that we really look at is the amount that we spend on our defense spending. We have the strongest military in the world, the most powerful military in the world, but it's not cheap. We spend about $800 billion on defense, paying our brave men and women in uniform, building aircraft carriers and ships and planes. But here's the part that is just, I think, very frustrating, is the interest that we spend on our national debt. It used to hover somewhere between 5 to 600 billion. It will now, for the first time in our nation's history, be over $900 billion will be the amount that we'll pay just on interest of our national debt. We'll spend more on interest than we will national defense. And do you think that when our current tax rates expire, because they do in 2025, that our politicians are going to get together in a room and say, you know what, the American people are working so hard, let's go ahead, even though their taxes are already at 50-year lows, let's lower their taxes even more? I don't think that's going to happen. I think taxes are heading higher, and I think they're heading much higher than what most Americans realize. If you think like me and you think taxes are headed higher, one of the things that you should consider is a Roth IRA. And one of the reasons why I like Roth IRAs, money that we have in 401ks or IRAs, we got a tax deduction when we put our money in, but now that we go to pull them out in retirement, we've got to pay taxes. In a Roth IRA, we put our money into a Roth IRA, we don't pay any taxes when we go to withdraw it. So in a Roth conversion strategy, we're taking money out of a taxable IRA and putting it into a Roth IRA where we pay taxes today, but we don't pay any tax on that money when we go to withdraw it in the future, and it goes to our heirs tax-free. Here's a quick example that we did for a client. 65 years old, saved about $1 million in their IRA account. If they were to just keep that IRA in the same way that it is, so don't convert it, just pull out money in retirement, they're currently in a 22% bracket. To be conservative, let's just say when tax rates go up, that goes up to a 25% bracket. How much in taxes will this 65-year-old pay on a $1 million IRA? Here it is. $1 million IRAs on required minimum distributions, you'll pay over $278,000 in federal income taxes when he goes to make his RMDs. If he wants to reinvest those RMDs, guess what? Now he's got to pay capital gains taxes. That's $132,000 in capital gains taxes that he'll have to pay. And you would think, after all those taxes, if he passes that money to his kids or grandkids, surely there's not more taxes. Well, we've guessed wrong. His heirs, his kids and his grandkids will have to pay over $200,000 in federal income taxes. So remember where we started. $1 million IRA at age 65. By age 90, that could be over $600,000 in total federal taxes paid in retirement. But if this same individual, 65 years old, $1 million IRA, converts it to a Roth, these numbers are just fascinating. To convert it to a Roth, that 65-year-old would pay over $220,000 in federal income taxes. But guess what? Here's the best part. No taxes, because there's no RMD requirements on a Roth. And if he passes that money on to his kids or his grandkids, if that's a $2 million or $5 million IRA, when his kids or grandkids receive that money, guess how much they pay in taxes? Zero. His heirs don't pay any tax on that money when they receive it. So it's not fun to pay over $200,000 in federal income taxes, but when you compare that to the $600,000 in federal income taxes if he kept it in his IRA, that's a total tax savings of over $400,000. So if you said, David, I agree like you, I think taxes are going higher, I would encourage you to sit down with our team to see, is a Roth conversion analysis plan right for you? We'd be honored to show you if you're a good candidate.